Wes, thanks for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this conversation because you've done such great work uh, at Choose. So tell us, Wes, what do you do?
Yeah, Jim, thanks for having me on. So I'm Wes Mathews, President and CEO of Choose New Jersey. Choose New Jersey is the state's business attraction agency. We're a C3 nonprofit, so we sit right outside of the official state government apparatus, but we complement the activities and work of state government in attracting businesses to New Jersey, but also marketing New Jersey as an ideal investment destination around the world.
Got it. And tell us how you got to this position. Tell us, take it from high school or college.
Yeah, I'd say sheer luck. But in high school and in college, actually take it back to middle school, I was always interested in foreign affairs and diplomacy, kind of a geek on studying world history and foreign affairs. And I remember asking my dad back then, who are those guys when we'd watch the news together who are negotiating peace? And he told me they're diplomats. And so ever since then, it was seventh or eighth grade, I always thought being a diplomat might be quite interesting. So in my late 20s, I was working in the private sector and I thought, let me, if I continue to put this off, I probably won't be able to scratch that itch. So I took the Foreign Service exam, went through the process, and I joined in 2008 as a Foreign Service officer. My second posting in the Foreign Service was to the US Embassy in Berlin, Germany. And I chose Berlin because of who the ambassador was. And it was a gentleman named Philip D. Murphy. And I looked at his background, I read his resume and his bio, and I thought, man, that's an individual I'd like to work for and work with. The Fast forward a few years, Phil Murphy is going on year eight of being New Jersey's governor. But way back then, Phil Murphy took a chance on me, and we worked closely together during his time as ambassador. He went back to New Jersey after his time in Germany as the ambassador. I went on in my foreign service career. Our next posting was in India and then Pakistan. And it was during that time where the governor won the election for his first term back in 2017. And as he was thinking about kind of his priorities, I think advancing New Jersey's kind of prestige or reputation as an investment destination around the world was really important to him. So I took the chance then, I took a leave of absence from the State Department to come work for the state of New Jersey and help the governor and Tim Sullivan and others in his cabinet think through kind of our foreign direct investment outreach efforts.
G- Go
So I
on.
did that for a couple of years at the EDA on a leave of absence with the State Department. I went back into the federal service 2 years into Governor Murphy's first term. And then it was after he won re-elect and kind of during in the middle of the pandemic where me and my family were then posted to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, but I got an interesting call from New Jersey for me to consider running Choose New Jersey. And it was at that point where we were in the middle of the Arabian desert. We had a 1-year-old in tow, and my wife was packing her bags before that call was over. And so it's been an incredible ride. A lot of it was luck. And, frankly, if I could think of kind of the pivotal moment that really the inflection point in my career and in our family's lives was that was meeting T. Murphy.
Nice, nice. And so what did you see when you got here from Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, so I had some familiarity with Choose when I first worked with the Murphy administration back in 2018 and 19. So we had an understanding of what Choose New Jersey was, and it was led by my predecessor, Jose Lozano, who did a marvelous job in leading the organization, in getting us into our new headquarters here in Newark from Princeton, and kind of getting the team through the early part of the pandemic. Because if you remember back in 2020 and 2021, the dark days of COVID, everyone was working from home. For us, the lifeblood of Choose New Jersey is meeting businesses, meeting entrepreneurs, meeting potential investors, meeting higher ed institutions. So the inability to do that really affected our work in a major way. It affected a lot of companies' work. A lot of organizations like ours around the nation affected their work too. But because of our location and where we are on the Eastern Seaboard and the access to Newark Liberty, we see so many more people than our competitor states. And so for us to have that energy or that momentum kind of stopped because of the pandemic really affected our team. And there was nothing we could do about it. So when I arrived in 2022, we started coming out of the very restrictive lockdowns. And so we started to kind of think through what our roadmap would look like. And we worked with the administration on finding ways, kind of if we had 4 more years left in the Murphy administration, how were we going to really supercharge our efforts, given we might have lost a year or 2 years in our efforts? So I saw a team that was still, at its core, we were all together. We were still kind of really hungry to get back out there and do this work, particularly our business development teams, our marketing teams really needed to put out some new fresh campaign ideas they were thinking through the pandemic. So we worked with the Murphy administration. We won several grants through the state government. Our thanks, any chance I get, I say thank you to the administration and also to the state legislature for appropriating those funds through the EDA and the Business Action Center. And so that really supercharged our efforts then for the next 3.5, 4 years up until this month to really get our message and our story across the world. It also allowed us to open up a few of these New Jersey global centers in parts of the world where historically we've seen trade and investment flows come into New Jersey, and where we think looking ahead, kind of where our economic sectors match those sectors in other parts of the world. So we're able to put those global centers in parts of the world like India, Western Europe, Israel, East Asia, and the West Coast of the United States that made sense for us.
Right. And so speaking of those, I was just on the trip, the mission to Mexico, and
Yeah.
there was some talk about or some urging by some of the Hispanic leaders from the state to put one of those offices in Central or South America. And I know you're leaving, but what is the prospect of that happening?
Yeah, I think it's an idea we should continue to think through. Historically, where we've put these centers are where we've seen significant trade and investment dollars come to New Jersey from. In terms of Latin America, we have a very robust trade relationship with Mexico and a few other countries in Latin America. We're continuing to gauge what those FDI inflows into New Jersey look like. I think with a little bit more momentum on the FDI front, it makes a lot of sense that we open up an office in Latin America. And I think if you look at some of the work we've done over these last 4 years, I'm really proud of, beyond just the pure dollars coming into New Jersey or improving trade flows, but the higher ed linkages. Because if you think about our state, if you could summarize our value proposition in 2 words, it would be talent and location. And on the talent side, having America's number one or one of the top, most talented workforces in the Western Hemisphere, I think that stems from, take grade school, but it definitely stems from our higher ed institutions. And so marrying our higher eds with higher eds around the world that makes sense was a real feather in our cap, something we're really proud of having been able to do for our higher eds over the last several years, and something I hope will continue. We signed a couple memoranda of understanding, as you know, in Mexico with our higher eds, and we had several other higher eds on the trip that were very interested in forming partnerships of their own. So I think, given that higher ed nexus, the really large trade relationship that exists, and if we added a investment element to that, I think Latin America is a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you can comment on this, but my perspective was that in this world of dysfunction and
Mhm.
chaos and sort of tensions between countries due to tariffs and et cetera, it was nice to see New Jersey taking the lead to sort of build those stronger relationships
Yeah.
on the ground to sort of help minimize the negative effects of things that are beyond our control.
Right. I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's exactly the reason we went to Mexico. It's exactly the reason 2 months before our Mexico trip, we went to India right in the middle of kind of the trade spat between the nations. And then there was an H-1B, restriction that came on. And we were in India when all that happened. But I can't tell you how thankful both our Mexican interlocutors and our Indian interlocutors were in having the governor and a very large delegation, 40 plus in both instances, show up in their country to wave the flag of New Jersey and say, hey, we know we have a relationship, we have a very solid partnership, and we want to see that grow. Given all these tensions in the air, we know they too will pass at some point. And we want to make sure those countries know that we as a state not only stand with them, but want to see them prosper and want to see this relationship between our state and their countries prosper.
Yeah, and I think just building on that, today there was a report of 17% less students,
Yeah.
international students coming to the state. So whatever we can do as a state to get the remaining folks that come here, those students are so critical to our talent pool, and the robustness of our universities.
Yeah, for sure. This is something, so we can't control visas as a state. I wish we could, but we can't. But it's something that the governor takes the liberty to mention to our State Department colleagues that run our embassies and consulates in those countries we visit. India, for example, we had over 2,000 Indian students looking to study in New Jersey higher eds for the fall semester. I'm hoping a lot of them got deferred admission into the spring, but you're talking about 2,000 students paying international tuition in New Jersey. You talk about the millions or tens of millions of dollars that we lost, through no consequence, or sorry, no, nothing we did, right? So part of this, when we talk about kind of business attraction, international investment attraction, part of it's also dealing with what we can't handle, or what we can't control. And so visas, we never thought this would be an issue, but it became a huge issue for us over the last few months. And then how do we then turn that into somewhat of a positive, either deferring students admission, or in some instances we have, some of our higher eds looking to open campuses overseas to help meet that demand, as well as offering additional online courses. So
Yeah.
there's ways we got to stay nimble, not just the business community, but the higher ed community as well.
Well, you've covered a lot of the things that you've accomplished. Are there some things that you want to reflect on that you're really proud of, in addition to what you've mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want I rarely, brag about any of, my efforts, but our team has done an incredible job. I mean, we have a pretty small team, Jim. We have 23 people in New Jersey. We run our global centers through a network of contractors. You put our global centers plus our team at home, we've done really a phenomenal job given the resources we have, and given kind of how other states are sized compared to us. So if I look at some competitors in Ohio, North Carolina, Texas, these guys are twice to 10 times as large as us, both in staff and in operating budget. I think we have made, sometimes, when you have little, you become smarter and you use those resources more intelligently. I think that's New Jersey's story in a number of fronts, but it's definitely our organization's story. The ability to kind of capture kind of mind share over these last 8 years of this administration through our organization is something I'm really proud of. Taking calculated bets too in a few parts of the world, like the Gulf Arab world. In the Foreign Service, my last posting was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I've spent a fair amount of time in the Emirates as well, and in other states in the region. And for us, we decided a few years ago that that's one part of the world where we're gonna, take I call it a calculated gamble, in hopes of, letting those countries and regions know about the New Jersey value proposition, because oftentimes they don't. We sing our praises every day, but we meet people daily as well around the world that have never heard of New Jersey's strengths as an economy, right? And so it's important that we get our message out there early and often. So taking some calculated bets in parts of the world like the Middle East, while also kind of underscoring and kind of, putting money down again and again on the regions of the world that continue to pay dividends for us. And there's no country in the world that means more to us than India, in my opinion. So making sure that relationship was on firm footing also was, something I'm proud of our team in accomplishing over these last few years.
Got it. Now you are moving on.
Yeah.
Some of our viewers don't know. Tell folks where you're going next.
Yeah, so literally down the block, staying in Newark, New Jersey, but moving to PSEG. So PSEG is the state's largest utility. Our organization, Choose New Jersey, has been led in terms of the board of directors by our chairman, Ralph LaRosa, who happens to be the CEO, president, and chair of PSEG. I've worked with PSEG very closely over the last 4 to 8 years in my time with the Murphy administration, more than just being a utility in New Jersey or one of the top 10 largest in the country. They're just an absolute terrific corporate citizen. I have really enjoyed working with Ralph and his team on all of our initiatives at Choose, not just in supporting us financially, which they do, almost every mission or event that we have. PS has been a tremendous supporter, but also with ideation and giving us things to think about as we plan, these missions or other events. So for me, I'm going to go there and be part of their government affairs team. Really excited about that. I think, given my past experience in diplomacy, a few of those tours, I had the energy portfolio for the U.S. in that country. So I've enjoyed talking about or discussing energy policy and trying to figure out ways. If you look at where our economy is headed, either as a country or as a state, energy is probably, right at the middle of any of those discussions and how we expand and grow our economy. So really excited about that.
That's great. Congratulations. So
Thank
for your successor, for the new administration, do you have any suggestions or guidance or advice?
you. Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I would say, I mean, look at our body of work over the last, 8 years, but Choose New Jersey's been in existence for 16 years. So under the Christie administration, under the Murphy administration, look at our body of work. I would say see what we've done really well, especially on the international side, and make your bets accordingly. I think, there could be everybody comes in wanting to, put their stamp on the organization or on the economy, and I have no doubt that the new team will and do it well. But I would say take a look at what we've done and see where kind of the inflows are coming from and what parts of the world we want to continue having that relationship with. I would say keep those while kind of putting your stamp on the organization or the state economy. So, and I would say one other thing, the bets we've done, given kind of our budgetary constraints. We have done so well these last 4 years only because of the funding that we received through grants from state government. Otherwise, our operating budget is very small. It cannot kind of pay for all of these expenses that we have, whether it's marketing campaigns or the international centers. So I would ask the new administration to keep that in mind as well. And if we want to continue waving the flag of New Jersey around the nation or around the world, then I would say please consider, supporting the organization financially as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Wes. Good luck with the new gig.
Thanks.
And thank you again for your leadership.
Thank you.